Sometimes it's nice to just close your eyes and think. I'm Ronnie, and you're listening to Clean With Me, the podcast where I walk you through cleaning your house step by step. When you clean along with this show, you'll get more done in less time so you can spend the rest of your day doing what matters most to you. Thanks for joining me. If you're addicted to multitasking, this episode is for you. I'm going to talk you through cleaning your kitchen. And I'm also going to talk about when it's a good idea to multitask and when it's not. Let's get right into the episode. It's time to gear up for your cleaning session. Maybe you still need to get dressed and looking presentable. This is more likely if you're listening to the episode in the morning. Maybe you need to kind of freshen up and just feel ready for the day, whether you might need to run an errand later or someone might arrive at the door, or even if you're not expecting anyone, when you look good, you feel good. So if you're not ready yet, I encourage you to get ready, even if you need to pause the episode. Another thing you might want to do before we get started is get your house smelling fresh. Okay, usually one of the most important things I do before starting to clean my kitchen is I have somebody take the trash out and reline it, and if no one else is around, I do it. In fact, sometimes I wonder what the neighbors are thinking because of how many times a day I'm seen taking out trash. It's never ending with 8 people living here and packages coming in the mail, and we're taking out a lot of trash here. But I like to take out the trash and reline it or delegate that to someone else, because when I'm cleaning the kitchen, I need to have a place to put stuff. So that could be you right now. And of course, having trash that's just sitting with rotten garbage in it can stink up your house. Another thing you might need to do to get your house smelling fresh is run your garbage disposal. Turn on the sink, run the garbage disposal. Especially if other people in your family might be putting things in the sink and not necessarily, running the garbage disposal. And I realize you're not supposed to put much in your garbage disposal at all. If you know, a lot of it's supposed to go in the trash, but you've got to get rid of those little particles by running it if you do have a garbage disposal. And then, of course, you could light a candle or start a wax warmer or an essential oil diffuser. Or maybe, weather permitting, you could open some windows. Sometimes it's good to air out your house for a few minutes, even if it's cold or hot. I mean, nobody's asking you to leave the windows open all day, but you might want to get some fresh air circulating, unless it's extremely hot or extremely cold. Another thing you can do if you have pets and at least part of your house is carpeted, you might want to sprinkle some Carpet Fresh or whatever brand you use, some type of a powder that freshens your carpet. Of course, it's no substitute for periodically shampooing your carpet, and also, this could be visible on the carpet, so maybe don't do it if you're not planning on vacuuming later today. But it's just an idea, even though we're going to be working in the kitchen. If you do plan on vacuuming after this while listening to some music, now might be the time to use some carpet sprinkles. And another thing to do right before any type of cleaning session is to get your machines running. And of course, if you have a dishwasher, that's going to be running when we get into doing dishes, but you might want to start a load of laundry. In fact, I started a load of laundry before I started recording this episode. My husband said, I think the washing machine's available. Okay, it's a weekend, people are doing laundry, and the washer is empty, so I went ahead and took advantage of that, started that machine, and then when I'm done recording this and the bonus episode, which is going to be a sequel to this episode, it'll be time to switch the laundry from the washing machine into the dryer. Hopefully by now you've done whatever you need to do to gear up for the cleaning session. Since this is a kitchen cleaning session, of course we are going to be tackling those dirty dishes. You're going to want to gather up any dirty dishes from around the house. Maybe you have a glass on your desk, a mug on your nightstand. Maybe there's a plate on a coffee table or a cereal bowl on the kitchen table. Walk through every room of your house, unless your family is perfect about taking things to the kitchen, and bring all those cups, bowls, plates, and silverware to the kitchen. If you want to accept a bonus task today, you might also want to grab something else that you could wash in the kitchen that's not a dish. For example, a toothbrush holder or a little decorative dish in the bathroom where you keep your jewelry. If you have anything, maybe a soap dish. If you have anything that's getting kind of grungy, you might want to take that item to the kitchen to wash it. While you're gathering up those dishes, I just wanted to say I've been reading some articles on this. Obviously, it's common sense too, but the studies kind of back up what I've already realized. Basically, the more we multitask, often the less we accomplish, because multitasking affects your ability to focus. Now, there are certain tasks that do not require much thought at all. And obviously, I'm going to be applying this mainly to housework in this episode. So one example of a task that I often do while listening or watching something is folding laundry. Okay. Another one that I do kind of mindlessly while I'm maybe talking on the phone or listening to a podcast about a random subject is washing dishes. But I've noticed that when it comes to organizing and picking up clutter from around your house or detailing the surfaces of your kitchen, other than just giving the countertops a light swipe, some of these tasks take a little bit more effort and concentration. Okay, for example, I use certain products on my granite. I use other products on my stainless steel. I like to remember where I put certain things if I'm rearranging. Basically, I try not to multitask lately when I'm actually tidying up my house, because it's distracting and it can slow me down. I allow myself to talk on the phone or listen to something while I'm doing dishes or while I'm doing laundry, but the house doesn't really get picked up and detailed when I'm thinking about other things. Obviously, the exception is listening to a cleaning podcast because I'm keeping you focused, okay? But I'm talking about unrelated content. That's for when you vacuum and mop your floors at the end of a session, or for when you sit down to fold and put away laundry, or maybe when you're washing a mountain of dishes. I'm kind of challenging you to stay in the moment more when you're picking up your house and detailing those smaller surfaces and organizing things. You need to be more present in those situations. I'll talk more about that. By now, of course, you've gathered up your dishes. Hopefully, you're already putting away any clean dishes. Maybe you need to empty your dishwasher or drying rack or both. And if you've already put away those clean dishes, it's time to start washing your dishes, whatever that means for you. In most situations, I recommend getting any difficult items soaking. If you have a large pot or pan with dried on food or baked on food, you want to fill that up with hot water and dish soap, maybe even a dishwasher pod, or maybe if the item's small enough, you can submerge it in your sink. You want to get the difficult items soaking first. The way I do it is I fill them up and place them next to the sink. That pot and pan that sat too long after dinner or whatever. Then the next thing I do is I clean out my sink, fill it up with hot soapy water. I typically just use Blue Dawn dish soap, but use your favorite liquid dish soap. And I put a little bit of vinegar in the water as well. And then I start pre-rinsing the small stuff, the silverware, the cups, the glasses, the bowls, plates, whatever. if there's stuff dried on, I'm often placing them momentarily into the right side of the sink where I have the hot water and dish soap. When I get to that item, I'm pulling them out one by one, scrubbing it under running water with a scrub brush on a handle or a sponge with an abrasive side like a Scrub Daddy or a Scotch-Brite sponge. That's kind of the routine. And then I load my dishwasher with plates, bowls, silverware. I strategically place some spatulas on the top rack. I might put a small saucepan or a 12-inch skillet in the bottom, or a small casserole dish. But the things that I'm keeping out to hand wash are my large skillet and my large pasta pot typically, and then sometimes a large rectangular casserole dish. I can fit that in a certain spot in the back of my dishwasher, but sometimes I choose to hand wash it. Just depends how much quote unquote small stuff I have to put in the dishwasher. But of course, if you're hand washing, you're going to start that first sink load, wash that. You're going to change the water as you go. But once I get the dishwasher loaded, I don't turn it on right away. I turn my attention to those items I had soaking, and I go ahead and scrub those. Obviously, once in a while, you need to leave something for an hour or longer. But usually, those few minutes where you're washing the small stuff and getting the dishwasher loaded provide enough time for those items to soak, just for the dish soap to kind of do its work. But you might not be in the exact same situation. Just be working on washing your dishes, whatever that means for you. You have a system, you have a routine. It's probably kind of mindless. So while you're washing those dishes, I'm going to keep talking about this topic of multitasking. Let me just give you like a random example. If I don't feel like taking a stand-up shower and I'm planning to take a bath, sometimes I think to myself subconsciously that it's going to be kind of boring and that I need to grab a book and take the book in there, or take my phone in there. And I mean, taking my phone kind of makes sense because I might get a phone call or a text if I have that on just the edge of the tub or whatever. Okay, I might be glad I brought it. But when I kind of laugh at myself is when I bring a book to read. And then once I get in the bathtub and I'm soaking and I'm relaxing, often I don't even pick up the book and read it, because taking a bath is enjoyable enough and just, thinking. Sometimes it's nice to just close your eyes and think. And I can't even count how many times I've brought a book and then not even opened up the book. I end up taking the entire bath. Then after I get out and get dressed, I might read the book. But I don't end up multitasking in that way. But my mind is always telling me, you need to entertain yourself. You need to entertain yourself, like while I'm doing these mundane tasks. Okay. I mean, that's why I created this show, because I knew that I needed to focus on cleaning, and that outside things like, looking at my phone or computer or whatever were distracting me from the work at hand. So I wanted to listen to a podcast about cleaning while I was cleaning, and I wanted it to even tell me what I should be doing to keep me from getting sidetracked, and that's why I created this show. While you're working on dishes, I'll just say another example of me multitasking to a fault is when I'm cooking and it pops into my head that I want to tell somebody something, and I call my sister or something, and I'm like on the phone while I'm cooking, and then I end up making mistakes in my cooking. I mean, I burn the bread even though I'm standing in the kitchen. Or the other night I was making spaghetti with meat sauce, not spaghetti with meatballs. I do that sometimes, but this is where you just chop up some ground beef, brown it, and you season it. Well, I was seasoning it, and all of a sudden I realized I was putting chili powder, cumin. I was basically seasoning it for tacos when I was making spaghetti. So the spaghetti was a little spicier than usual. It had a slightly different flavor. It was fine, but I do stuff like that all the time, and sometimes I make even worse mistakes where I'm using the wrong ingredient or I'm forgetting about something. So cooking is a perfect example of a situation where you should be just completely focused on that task. I mean, maybe you're different, but I shouldn't even be talking to people while I'm cooking, okay? Another example, sometimes when I'm driving, if I'm in a really interesting conversation and I'm just super invested in what I'm talking about, I will forget that I'm planning to go to a certain store and I'll blow by it. I'll just go on autopilot and start, heading in the usual direction. So there are definitely times in life where you shouldn't be multitasking, and those might be kind of obvious. Obviously, when you're measuring ingredients to bake bread, you're using like a 1 cup scoop, counting how many scoops of flour you're putting in, you shouldn't be talking to anybody, or you're going to forget if you're on scoop 3 or scoop 4. But what we don't often realize is that multitasking sometimes keeps us from getting our house fully clean. For some reason, when I'm letting my mind wander because I'm watching a video or listening to something that's not cleaning related or chatting on the phone, I'll start to clean a room, but then I might wander out of the room and do something else, when what I really need to be doing is working through the room systematically. I mentioned this in a recent episode, but when I'm cleaning a bedroom, I'm kind of working in a horseshoe pattern. Start at one corner and work your way around the bed, basically, because chances are your bedroom's not huge, but you've got a good sized bed in the middle of it, and then you kind of work your way around the room in a horseshoe pattern. And it can be the same way with decluttering your countertops in the kitchen, which we're going to get to in just a minute. So I'm going to give you a couple more minutes to wrap up washing those dishes. Do it quickly. Sometimes the job expands to fill the time allotted, and I want you to get those dishes done. So let's speed it up. I'm lighting a fire under you. Let's speed up the process and get those dishes done in a couple minutes so we can systematically declutter the surfaces of your kitchen and wipe them down. A lot of times at the end of an episode, I encourage you to sit down and fold some laundry or vacuum, sweep, and mop. And that's because those tasks don't tend to require as much thought. I can definitely be on the phone with somebody or listening to music and mop my floor because I'm just going, row by row. Lately, I use a vacuum in my kitchen floor, and then my husband goes over it with a mopping machine. So we are doing it with machines. Before I begin with the vacuuming, I sweep up anything that's maybe along an edge or too large for the vacuum to handle or whatever. I might do a rough sweep real quick, and then I go over the floor systematically, but you're going row by row. It's just like mowing the lawn when you're vacuuming or you're sweeping. You're doing it row by row. It's kind of a no-brainer, but for some reason, when there's a task like decluttering your countertops or cleaning your bedroom or picking up your living room, there's more of a chance of wandering off because you're not doing it in rows per se. You pick something up, you put it away, you see something else, you get distracted. Or if you're like me, you're on a long phone call. Sometimes you'll be cleaning for a while and then you'll kind of plop down and not even realize it that you're back on the couch or the bed again. I'm going to give you about 30 more seconds to finish doing those dishes. If there's anything left that you haven't had time to wash, maybe get those items soaking and get back to those after the episode. But I want you to make sure that you don't have any dishes on your countertop. Either place them in the sink or behind the sink. One thing I do, I mentioned soaking a dirty pot or pan. I didn't mention the glasses, but if there's kind of a ring at the bottom of a glass or something and I need to soak that, I fill it up with hot water, a couple drops of dish soap, and I place it kind of behind the sink. And I also have a waterproof surface in my windowsill. You might not want to put a damp glass in your windowsill unless it's designed for that, but mine has the granite, the sealed granite in the windowsill too. So I'm often placing a glass there to soak, or I'm placing it in the area right behind the sink, just because I don't want glasses to get broken by being submerged in the dishwater. But everything else can be submerged. And no judgment here if you're deciding that your dishes are taking precedent and you're just going to keep washing the dishes. Definitely, if all you get done during this episode is get caught up on a mountain of dishes, that's fine too. But a lot of you want to switch gears, so you want to get those last few items soaking and just make sure they're off of the surfaces that you're going to be wiping down, basically. Consolidate the mess to the sink, with the exception of maybe placing something behind the sink. And then, of course, you're going to remove clutter from your countertop. You're going to pick one end of your kitchen and do it systematically. I don't want you doing the darting around thing that you might do if you were listening to a different podcast or chatting on the phone, where, let's say you grab something from the left-hand end of your countertop and decide that needs to go in your junk drawer, and then all of a sudden you're clearing the island because your junk drawer was on the island. Do you see where I'm going with this? You leave some items out because you're cleaning in a zigzag pattern instead of cleaning systematically. So if you put something away that was on the left-hand edge, keep working on that particular area until it's fully decluttered. I'm talking about random items that were left on the countertop, but I'm also talking about small appliances that have a more permanent home than your countertop. Maybe your Keurig and your toaster are out all the time, but maybe there's a crock pot, an instant pot, a blender, whatever else, you name the gadget, that needs to be put away in its more permanent home, like in your pantry. My bottom shelf of my pantry is for my small appliances, like my crock pot and my instant pot. And you may need to wipe down your cabinets. Definitely, almost every time I clean my kitchen, as far as wiping down the countertops, clearing the clutter, and then spraying and wiping down my countertops, I'm also wiping down the outsides of my large appliances, like my refrigerator, my microwave, my oven, my dishwasher, especially the high touch areas though. The refrigerator exterior around the handle, okay? The top of the stove, of course. That kind of goes along with cleaning the countertop. Just be cleaning those upper surfaces in your kitchen, but I want you to be systematic about it. Start at one end, and if you put something away, go back where you left off so that you are truly clearing off your countertop. And you might be doing it in one fell swoop as far as removing all the clutter so that you can just get spray bottle happy, or maybe you're just clearing an area, spraying it, wiping it down. It's up to you how you do that, but be cleaning the upper surfaces of your kitchen. And then, of course, after this episode's over, I want you to sweep and mop, whether you're doing that with machines or the old-fashioned way. But the bottom line is, I want you to use this show to keep you focused and on task when you're picking up your bedroom, your living areas, because I don't want your mind to wander to something other than cleaning, to where you start moving in a zigzag pattern and next thing you know, you've left the room. And that can happen when you're trying to entertain yourself with things that are not cleaning related, like just listening to a random YouTube video. I've found that I get more done when I go through my house fully present, fully focused, no headphones, or I'm listening to a cleaning podcast that's literally telling me to pick up. I mean, that works too. But when you're not listening to this show, you might want to just be fully focused when you're picking up your bedroom floor systematically, or you're organizing your closet, or you're cleaning out a drawer, or you're picking up your living room, because you're going to be more thorough. Then that playlist that you've been saving those watch later videos on your YouTube watch list, or maybe those true crime podcasts that you're into. Those are for the more mindless tasks like folding and putting away laundry, doing your dishes, sweeping and mopping, vacuuming. But when it comes to organizing, picking up clutter, it's not always a good idea to multitask. And listening to this show while you're cleaning is not multitasking, because I am keeping you in a certain room. Which brings me to my next point. If you subscribe to the bonus content, you're going to go through every room in your house and a lot of those whole house episodes. So if you haven't already subscribed, you can visit cleanwithmepodcast.com to learn how to do that. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, the Clean With Me Unplugged are already being advertised to you. It might be as simple as just clicking Start Trial, depending on which app you're listening on. And you can support me on Patreon, regardless of which podcast app you listen on. And the Patreon episodes do integrate with some podcast platforms, not to sound super technical, but you might have to listen to them on Patreon itself, or it might be coming up in your audio feed once you subscribe, depending on the app you use. So definitely visit my website to learn more, cleanwithmepodcast.com. Special thanks to those of you who are already supporting the show. But even just listening to these free episodes helps me, so I appreciate each and every one of you. Be sure to sweep and mop your kitchen after this, and just beware of multitasking when you're picking up and organizing your house. That's the thesis statement of the episode. Either be listening to a cleaning podcast that's telling you to stay in that room, or just unplug for a while and do that. Then reward yourself with those playlists you want to listen to while you're doing the more mundane aspects of cleaning. Hopefully that makes sense. Happy cleaning, and I'll talk to you in the next episode.